All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talkin Investing. Happy Friday. Hopefully you guys had a good day. Hello, George. What's happening?
George says hi. Nothing. I'm just so happy the CPI number came in. Woohoo!
That's such a
feeling rich, feeling rich.
If you can feel it in your pocketbook already.
Yeah, feeling it. I mean, it's just so nice to be confirmed that I'm rich. 2.9%. Woohoo!
Yeah, what a non-event that was for the market. So that's on our list. We got a big list today. A bunch of stuff went on with the Bitcoin miners. So we're going to go through all that and obviously CPI and some other data. So a lot of stuff. But as always, we will start out by asking you if you could please smash the like button. We're going for 100 likes and we're at 9. So if you could please help get us to 100 likes, that helps the stream out big time. Welcome to our members. I see several members in the chat. So hello to Edmund and Malik, Sourmelon Gaming, JD, Alexander, and whoever else is here. Welcome to everybody.
I'm going to tell you one thing I'm in shock about before we even keep going. You ready?
Go. Absolutely.
I'm in shock we're not at war.
Well, I know this is one of those things. We talked about this on the members only stream. I even think we were talking about it on last Friday's stream. It's been one of these situations where, if you read the headlines every day, they say, we're on the brink, we're on the verge to, something's going to happen today. And, fortunately, so far, we haven't had a massive escalation. And I hope that that continues to be the case. May cooler heads prevail. I know still, there are active wars going on, but, we can only hope they don't escalate.
Well, Tom, I need to also tell you this. Interest of full disclosure.
Yes.
I'm 100% out of the stock market right now.
You're out. You've sold all the Bitcoin miners.
All the Bitcoin. I'm not out of crypto. I'm out of the miners right now.
So you kept your
Today
crypto.
was the day. Time to get out. I got out.
Oh, you did it today. Okay. So today was the day. This was your exit.
I was real close to my bottom number. So I was like, you know what? It's very close to that number. So let's do it. Get out. Do a 30-day reset and let's try again.
So you're going to wait the 30 days, see what happens.
Yeah. So the last time this happened, guys, everything went nuts. So you're welcome. When it goes nuts.
All right. So if it's a rocket ship up from here, we can thank George. And if it is, you still got all your Bitcoin and your XRP.
Don't miss it all.
That's right. Yeah. Hello, the real Gary Gensler. And I see in the comments, I won't say anything except this. Crypto Rich said, I went to the Bills game on Saturday. Glad we left at the end of the third quarter. LOL.
Did you see the defensive? Oh, sorry. This ain't crypto, but did you see the linebacker out for the season?
Milano out for the. I know he. I think he's our best guy on defense. We won't. We're not going to obsess over football, everybody. So don't panic. But we're taking our 30 seconds to cry in our soup.
There goes the season.
Here we go again, and we haven't even started. So
yep.
We'll leave it at that. Midway. Thank you, Midway. Thanks for being a member. Thanks for the super chat. Midway said, happy Friday. My mining stock positions, I'm now 60% iron, huge exahash growth over the next 12 months, and 40% BitDeer/Cypher, enormous exahash growth during 2025. Yeah, I think, I think people are sleeping on Cypher, and I might be one of those people. If they stay according to their plan, there's two companies. Well, there's 2 or 3 companies whose growth is coming a little bit behind some of the other companies. But if you believe Cypher, they're looking to get to 35 exahash by the end of 2025. I think a lot of people, myself included, are more focused on, this, month by month, their operational report, how they're doing right now versus their peers, what their goal is at the end of 2024 versus their peers. So at the end of 2024, they'll be a little behind. But if you believe their plan and they do what they say they're going to do, there's going to be 5 or 6 Bitcoin miners, at 35 plus exahash. Some of them have plans to get into the 50s, 60s, 70s. So, this thing's going to escalate rapidly if everybody does what they say they're going to do. Having said that, I'm going to get to an article where at the moment the Bitcoin miners are struggling based on the halving happening, the massive increase in the hash rate and the stagnant price of Bitcoin. We'll go through a detailed article that breaks that down. JP Morgan put something out. Also, I will say JP Morgan likes to put out, I think it was them, they like to put out FUD and negative articles about Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners, etc. So for whatever that's worth.
I know, trust me. I know George sells at the lows and buys at the highs, just like every other retail guy.
And then just to finish up Midway, and then we'll get to the real Gary Gensler. To finish up, Midway is 60% in iron, and their growth plans are 30 exahash by the end of this year. And then I think 40, last I remember, 40 by the end of next year. So this is what I'm saying. You've got Marathon, you've got Riot, you've got CleanSpark, you've got Iris Energy, you've got Core Scientific that it looks like they're planning on doing something. You've got Bitfarms, you've got Cypher. I mean, there's a lot of companies that are planning on getting over 30 exahash next year. So we'll see who sticks to their plan, and we'll see exactly where Bitfarms is. And there's an update. 2 updates on Bitfarms this week, so we'll talk a little bit about that. The saga continues, the drama continues with Bitfarms and Riot, and just Bitfarms in general. That is, I do hold Bitfarms, so I'm still optimistic. But obviously, as always, none of this is financial advice. Please do your own due diligence, especially regarding cryptocurrency and the Bitcoin miners, which are ultra volatile.
At the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the year, I had a humongous profit that was short-term profit that I have to get rid of it. I have to sell, and I have to take the 30 days because there's no way it's going to go up that much for the amount of money. So I have to, this is a tax strategy. This was your opportunity to to cancel out your gains. So let me get to a couple of people. I don't want to skip any super chats. The real Gary Gensler said, and then could not find a better name. I'll get to you in 1 minute. I see you there. Thank you. The real Gary Gensler, thanks for being a member. Thanks for the super chat. Oh, and he says, okay, serious note, Riot, ? Trash or not? So you want to take that one first? I mean, I'll give my opinion on Riot. I'm going with trash right now. I mean, it's trash until at least 30 days. I'll tell you that.
Well, you're hoping everything's trash the next 30 days.
Yeah, well, I just think they are piss poor timing with the raise of additional funds. I just think that this was not a good time to do that.
Yes, they continue to dilute.
So I say trash for the next 4 to 6 months, maybe. And then it should be good.
So my answer is, I do not think that Riot is trash. I think that they had I was going to say a very good. I think they had a good July operational update. I thought their financial statements, mostly what I expected to see. Yes, the usual complaints. There was dilution. It was less dilution than it had been in the past, but still, there was $156 million, I think, of stock dilution in the quarter. And they continued to dilute after the quarter. We're going to see they put out a new at-the-market offering last week. So to George's point, the stock dilution continues. I know a lot of people are upset about officer compensation and that kind of stuff. Their overhead is higher than I would like it to be. But on the flip side, operationally, they are starting to execute this plan they've been talking about for the last 18 months. Over the last 60 days, they have started to seriously execute on that plan from an operational standpoint. So to me, I think that's the bright side. That's the upside. I'm still, I actually dollar cost averaged into my Riot position last week. Again, not financial advice. I don't, that one in particular, that's the worst performer of the year out of all the Bitcoin mining stocks that we follow here. and we'll look at that chart as well. So, you know, year to date so far, that has been an awful investment for me and for anybody that's held it. But I'm holding on. I still think by the end of the bull cycle, Riot's going to get to where it's supposed to go. That's just my personal opinion. So, but I'm being very, very judicious and, you know, about buying any more of any of these stocks, you know, and that's just a part of the fact that I've been averaging in for a long time. So depending on where you are in your part of your investment cycle, you know, and I'm holding, as you can see, you know, George is buying and selling, and, you know, that's working out, and there's all different strategies. So
I,
you know,
I have a question, Tom. What could I do right now to like cover me? So like, because you know, there's a lot of money I took out. What could I do? Could I just get calls on the stocks for, you know, on options?
so in the US, technically, if you were to trade, you should get calls on something related. But technically, if it's the same thing, that's supposed to negate the wash rules. I don't see how they possibly track all that, and I am not the person to go to for that question. But yes, in theory, you know, if you're out because you're scared and you don't want a lot of money invested in, a way to have a little bit of money and still leave yourself some potential upside. Obviously, there's still downside, and the risk with options is there's a time limit on them, and, you know, they could go to zero.
Right.
But it's a lot less money. So yes, you know, you buy some calls potentially if you want to just keep a little something at risk and participate a little bit if it happens to go up. So
would you just like pick a price point
I mean,
out of the money?
if you're worried that things are going to, you know, if you want out and you think things are going down, but you're worried that, hey, what if this 30 days is that window where everything goes ballistic? So I think what you're looking to make sure is you don't miss some giant move to the upside if this happens to be the big move. So if that's what you would be looking for, then, you know, you could go out of the money, which is going to cost you less money, and then probably expect that, you know, maybe, you know, it's highly probable those are not going to pay off, but it's kind of an insurance policy that, you know, if this is that window where Bitcoin goes ballistic and the Bitcoin miners follow, then you didn't miss it. Now, from your perspective, you're already in Bitcoin itself. So, you know, to some extent, you're going to catch the run if it goes.
Well, I did it for our members is really what I did it for.
And Crypto Fever is saying the broker tracks everything and calculates in your tax paperwork. So that's the clarification there on what we were talking about. So if you're in the US, you know, I don't know how it works around the rest of the world. I don't know, you know, there's different rules everywhere.
Yeah, but what gets me is the way I was trading was day trading, and this will wash that out. So I still had a tax liability even though I was down. Is that not insane?
Well, you had paper losses, but you had real gains.
Right.
I want to get to a couple of super chats.
We're going nuts today, Tom.
Could not find a better name. Thanks for the super chat. Said Hive reported this week. What are your thoughts? So I can tell a couple of thoughts on Hive. Number one, there's a bunch of companies whose top line is in this $30 to $35 million range. So they're in that group. It's the lower end of the group, but I was surprised to find, you know, a bunch very similar. So their top line, some of the things that I like about Hive, they're growing their hodl position. Yes, it's smaller than the giant companies. They are a much smaller market cap company, and they're a much smaller company. But I think they've done a lot of things to stay competitive. They're updating their fleet in a big way, and they manage their overhead in a very good way. If you look at overhead across all the Bitcoin mining companies, I think that's one of the ways Hive tries to, you know, stay, agile and get through, you know, this is the hardest part. We're after the halving. Bitcoin's actually, because it had a run up, you know, it's actually pulled back quite a bit from its highs. And, you know, we haven't had the giant run up yet post halving. So this is the hardest time for these Bitcoin miners. So, you know, I think I don't own Hive right now, but I thought their quarterly info was good. For me, again, none of this is financial advice. That's just my opinion. You guys can drop in the comments what you thought if anybody took a look through the Hive report and what their thoughts were. And CleanSpark to 100. How much does CleanSpark have remaining on their current $800 million at the market offering? Will they announce another the Friday of Labor Day weekend? So that is a number I don't remember off the top of my head. So I'm sorry. Usually I have these numbers on the top of my head, but I don't. But we can go into their footnotes. So I will do that and take a look at what they reported and how much they have left. I remember thinking they weren't this last quarter, and I want to look, to make sure, but I remember thinking the big three, which to me from a market cap and all the other ways are Marathon, Riot, and CleanSpark. They dialed their dilution back a little bit, but yes, I need to check that number. And are they going to announce another? I mean, I don't know if or when, but ultimately I expect, just like we saw with Riot, and we're going to take a look, I expect every time these guys finish, we know CleanSpark has monumental growth plans from here, even though they have grown substantially already. They've much more than doubled their exahash. They have a lot more growth plans ahead. So they're going to continue to dilute. And they hodled in July 99% of their Bitcoin mined. So, virtually 100% hodl. So, they're hitting their off at the market offering. There's just no doubt about it. And it looks like they've, there's three companies that hodled, 99 or 100% of their Bitcoin. And it was Marathon, Riot, and CleanSpark. Those are the big three companies. Those are three of the four largest stacks. HUT still has the third largest stack at, I think, 9,102 they reported at the end of July. They're not really adding to that stack over the last 6 to 8 months, but they're not eating into it, so they've maintained their stack. So I will circle back around and try and get an exact answer to that. But in general, I would say I would expect these big companies that have, laid out their plan to get to much, much bigger, their CleanSpark's looking to get to 50 exahash and beyond. So, yeah, they're going to keep diluting. Midway, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the super chat. Midway said, what is your opinion of mining companies raising money via convertibles instead of doing a lot of dilution at low prices? BitDeer and HUT did some convertibles this summer with an interest rate in the 8%. So there was 3 companies in the last week that did convertible notes. I want to go through all 3 companies. And that's a great question, Midway. And it's something that wasn't happening. And I think it actually bodes well that, companies are able to do this. And we'll take a look because, they got a little premium on their stock price, on their convertible notes. So who did? I think 3 or 4. Marathon did some convertible notes. Core Scientific did some convertible notes, and BitDeer just did some convertible notes, all in the last, several days. So I want to look at those in specific because it is worth looking at. And they got, I know particularly Marathon, I think all 3 of those companies got significantly better rates than 8%. They got very low interest rates. And, so as opposed to, as opposed to these at the market offerings where, as you sell whatever the current price is. And, we're today notwithstanding, today was a very green day for the Bitcoin miners. So that, that's good. But in general, these Bitcoin miners most of them are down on the year. So, most of them are at or near local lows. So I don't love dilution at the numbers that these companies are at. So this is a way to get a little bit of a premium. And several of these are pretty complicated where, they don't necessarily have to convert. There's some ways that the companies can pay these off and, it'll end up being debt and not equity, if things go right. So I like this because, way back when there were companies getting actual debt, not convertible debt, but actual debt from lending institutions, and it was secured debt, right? All this convertible debt is unsecured. It was secured debt. A lot of them, it was secured against their Bitcoin. There were several companies. Bitfarms was one of them that got caught in this, and it was a big, big problem. It took them, 18 months to unwind the steps backward they took from that. I think they're way past that now. Iron had to walk away from most of their machines in the downturn and kind of press the reset button. Now, they structured it in a way where they got to walk away from their machines and, kind of a little bit for free. I don't think we're ever going to see that conventional debt, secured debt. Certainly, I don't think we're going to see it secured against their Bitcoin mining machines, because those are too short-term assets. I don't think lending institutions are going to lend against those anymore. I don't know that companies want to borrow against their stack. If they do, they got to be careful about that. So this convertible debt is turning into a thing. We got equity, we got convertible debt. These companies need money. That's the bottom line, especially the ones that are trying to hold all their Bitcoin and the ones that are trying to grow. Remember, there's only 3 ways to get money. Produce money, cash flow from operations, and these companies are not really in that position at this part of the cycle. Hopefully 3 months, 6 months now, 12 from now, they'll be in that. But that's not enough to fund their CapEx either. So then, that leaves you debt and equity. So convertible debt is kind of a hybrid. And we'll go through, again, a bunch of money was raised this week. So let's take a look at a couple of those while we're at it. So Marathon had a few big announcements as this went along. So they were going to do a $250 million convertible note. So on the members only stream, we talked about the fact that this is kind of a mini micro strategy. They specifically basically said, we want to go get convertible debt and buy Bitcoin. And what we had talked about is every time MicroStrategy does this, it gets oversubscribed. They raise more money than they even intended to. Well, sure enough, the same exact thing happens with Marathon. They wanted $250 million, but if we go take a look, you're going to see this ended up at $300 million. And they immediately purchased $249 million worth of Bitcoin. So this week, Marathon purchased, let me find the number. Marathon purchased 4,144 Bitcoin this week. So their 250 ended up being 300, and it's going to end up actually being more than that, I think, because I think there's some more options beyond that. But they've already spent $250 million of it. They bought over 4,000 Bitcoin. They already had almost 21,000 Bitcoin. So this probably puts them somewhere in the neighborhood of 25,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So, they are running away from the other Bitcoin miners as far as the amount of Bitcoin they have on their balance sheet. But having said that, they're having to do it through, they have an at-the-market offering that's open. They're doing convertible debt. They're all in on Bitcoin. This is kind of what I've been talking about for the last week. It seems like Marathon has an extremely high level of conviction that they believe the price of Bitcoin is going to go up dramatically, because you can see they're borrowing against the future here. They're putting out convertible notes in order to go buy 4,000 Bitcoin. So, that's a big deal. There's only 4 Bitcoin miners that have a bigger stack than, in total, from the beginning of time until now, than what Marathon just went out and bought over the last couple of days. So that's how much Bitcoin that is in perspective. And Marathon has the second most Bitcoin of any publicly traded company. So obviously MicroStrategy has the most, and it's not even close. They have well over 200,000 Bitcoin. And so that's number 1. But Marathon is number 2. And they've dramatically increased the amount. They went out last month. They spent $100 million and went out and bought Bitcoin. They hodled the 692 that they mined in July. And then they just went out and bought over 4,000 more. So I don't know what their target number is here. It could be that, they're just going to be opportunistic and they feel that Bitcoin at 60,000 or under 60,000 is just a steal. and they're expecting it, to go a lot further. I see George in the comments, but I'm not seeing his face. So hello, George, if you can hear me. He may be conducting some business. I know he's got a lot of other stuff going on. Jump back in whenever you want, George. So this is what Marathon did. So that's the first one. And again, if we go back, they oversubscribed. So their 250 was 300. So next, Core Scientific. So Core Scientific announced proposed convertible senior note offering. They were looking to raise $350 million. And then, as always, there's a little add-on on these. So you're always going to see $52 million. So let me read the whole thing here. Core Scientific also expects to grant the initial purchasers of the note an option to purchase for settlement within a period of 13 days from the date of the notes first issued, up to an additional $52 million of principal. So the 250 was really, or sorry, the 350 million had the potential to be 400 million. But just a few days later, they announced Core Scientific prices upsized $400 million convertible note. So they had to upsize their note as well from 350 to 400, and that doesn't include that 52 million we just looked at. So you'll see there's another now 60 million on top of the 400 that there's an option to do, and this very oftentimes happens. So this may end up being a $460 million convertible note that they're raising. They did this, so let's talk share price. They did this at $11 per share. And if we look at what their share price is right now, it's $10. So that's a 10% premium to today's price. But, they were up 9% today. So from the day they did that, it was probably like a 20% premium, they may say in here. Okay, so it was trading at $8.46 when they locked this in at $11. So that was a significant premium. And you can see it's already traded from $8.46 back up to $10. A lot of times, I think these are great opportunities, buying opportunities if you're looking to add to your position, because the market very often has a 1 or 2 or 3 day knee-jerk reaction, especially that first day, the stock takes a big whammy. And so many times, of course, there's no guarantee, but so many times you see that immediately reverse itself. And so you can see here, this stock went all the way down to $8.46, and now it's back to $10. These are convertible at $11. So that's $400 million from Core Scientific. So, $300 million from Marathon, $400 million from Core Scientific, and then BitDeer. This is all this week, right? So BitDeer announces proposed offering of $150 million of convertible notes. So that was on the 15th. And then today, BitDeer announces pricing of the $150 million of convertibles. So they did not upsize this, but you'll see this was priced at US dollars, $8.55. So if we take a look at BitDeer, it's trading at $6.46. BitDeer was down like 18% yesterday. I did buy some short-term options, some September 20th options on BitDeer. When they were, at the time, they were down about 17%. I think they ended up down 18% on the day. So I just felt like they were giving the options away. And oftentimes, like I said, over the next week, there's a pop in these. So to me, it was a small amount. It would be a quick trade for me. It may work, it may not. But what is most typical and what we just saw, had I done that with Core Scientific, I would have already probably sold my options and they doubled and gotten out. So we'll see what happens with the BitDeer options. And, not financial advice. If you guys don't trade options, please walk before you run, crawl before you walk with options, because they're a totally, totally different thing than buying stock. So those are the 3 companies that went out just this week and raised money. So that was $300 million, $400 million, and $150 million. So the Bitcoin miners are raising money in a big way right now. That does not include whatever they may be doing with their at-the-market offering. You know, Marathon has an at-the-market offering in addition to that. And so we might as well circle back around. First, I'm going to take a break. Welcome back, George.
Hey.
And ask if everybody could please smash the like button. We are now at 55 likes. We were trying to get to 100 likes. If you guys could help us out, we would appreciate it. A couple of weeks ago, we got to 200 likes. So that was a giant home run. So if you're here, if you enjoy this stream, if you could do us a favor and smash the like button, we would appreciate it. Okay, so the other, as long as we're talking about dilution and companies diluting, oh, that's not it. We'll get to that. Riot. Okay, so on Friday, August 9th, last Friday, Riot quietly put this out. And I just say quietly because there was no corresponding press release to this, but obviously they filed this with the SEC. So Riot Platforms, this is a $750 million shelf offering. So this is an at-the-market offering for $750 million. I do want to put one addendum onto this because if you dig just a little bit deeper than this, it's not really $750 million. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. If you go to, they also, the same day, I believe it was the same day, they filed Form 8K. And that is because, if you remember, they already had a $750 million at-the-market offering that was open, and they had just put out their financial statements, and there was a lot of room left on that. So, you know, the question is, what happened to that one? Well, the answer to that is, let's see, $278 million of shares of common stock remain unsold on the existing $750 million that they had prior to this. And then they further say no further offerings or sales of common stock will be conducted under the 2023 sales agreement. So essentially they canceled the remaining 278 million on the 750 that already existed. So they canceled their old one with 278 million remaining. They opened a new 750 million. So if I look at my notes, that's about $472 million of new additional potential that they added to their shelf offering. So still a total of $750 million, but there was already 278 million that was out there still open. So they didn't add 750 on top of that. It's just a total of 750. So I just think that's a little bit worth clarifying. But this is still, I mean, you're still talking about adding about $500 million to their at-the-market offering. And this is a company that I know a lot of people are frustrated with their stock dilution. We had, you know, in fact, that'll be our first poll of the day. We're late to have a poll. Okay. Do you think Riot has too much stock dilution to be a good investment? So not just too much and you wish it was less, but too much to where, you know what, you're not investing in this because this is one of those companies that just continuously dilutes. And there are those companies. I mean, I know a lot of people, right? We've been doing this for a long time, and it's one of the main comments that we've heard along the way, and it has escalated. The fourth quarter of the calendar year 2023 and the first quarter of the calendar year 2024, several of these companies ramped up, you know, all-time record levels of stock dilution. Now, a lot of that, I think, had to do with the fact that we were going into the halving, right, in mid to late April, and they had gigantic growth plans, and, you know, they wanted to get some of this done before the halving. And some companies were more successful than others. There were, you know, I will say one of the reasons that I think Cleanspark had such a great first, you know, 3 or 4 months of the year is they were getting a dramatic amount of exahash online and they were very efficient miners. They were increasing the amount they were mining, and they were hodling all of it. And so I think a lot of people were looking at that saying, those 3 months, that 90 days before the halving, CleanSpark really totally maximized their ability to, get the 6.25 Bitcoin rewards in those 3 months by adding significant, I think if I'm remembering right, and you can go correct me if I'm wrong, I think they went from 10 to 17 exahash, in the first 3 or 4 months of the year. And, that allowed them to produce a lot of Bitcoin. They have 10 times the amount of Bitcoin on their balance sheet that they had, about a year ago.
I can't get over how many scammers there are, Tom, still on YouTube pretending to be talking investing.
Oh, seriously? Well, yes, please be careful. If anybody ever contacts you and says that they're me or George, they're not, especially if they're asking for money or, hit them up on Telegram, whatever the case may be. So please be careful of scammers, not just on this channel. It seems like they're everywhere. So trust but verify. Edmund, I'll just give Edmund his shout out. Edmund said, Bitcoin, 0 expenses, no management, no dilution, no accounting expenses, no financial filings. Bitcoin, great investment. So I know Edmund's a big fan and kind of switched strategies a while back and got out of the Bitcoin miners and into just the direct play of Bitcoin. I think in the middle, and maybe you're still in it. Let me know, Edmund. MicroStrategy. Oh, I see. Yes, still have MicroStrategy. So actually, he already answered the question before I asked it. No plan to sell until maybe summer of 2025. So that was Edmund's kind of shift, was into MicroStrategy and Bitcoin directly. So what Marathon is doing, I mean, you can see Marathon is emulating MicroStrategy's concept. Obviously, they're very different companies in almost every other way, but they have adopted this concept of, they just did $300 million of convertible debt and spent $250 million this week to go buy 4,144 Bitcoin. So that's very bullish, right? And again, they are the second largest holder of Bitcoin, not just of the Bitcoin mining companies, of any publicly traded company. So we'll see. It will be interesting to see 5 years from now what that list looks like, because still 5 of the top 10 companies that hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet that are publicly traded are Bitcoin mining companies. By the time you get to number 10, you're at a tiny amount of Bitcoin. So we are not even at the beginning of the adoption of corporate America and, corporations around the world starting to adopt having some part of their treasury plan being, holding Bitcoin. I certainly don't expect a lot of companies to start doing what MicroStrategy is doing, but allocating some amount. And, there's companies with liquidity, companies like Apple and Microsoft and some others have, those two in particular, there's times they have $100 billion of liquidity on their balance sheet. For them to go buy $2, $3, $4 billion of Bitcoin would be a drop in the bucket. So I do think over time, you're going to see all these people start to move in. I won't say pile in, but, every piece of adoption helps. Let me find an article. This is a very tiny piece, but South Korea's pension fund snaps up nearly $34 million of MicroStrategy shares. So, Edmund, as long as we're talking about MicroStrategy and corporate adoption, and this is not corporate adoption, this is a country's pension fund. So, so they didn't go buy the cryptocurrency directly. They're using MicroStrategy as a play on Bitcoin. I mean, obviously, that's at this point, MicroStrategy is almost a pure play on Bitcoin. So, there's a lot. There's almost every day you see an article where some company or country or pension fund or money manager or whatever the case may be is just starting to adopt Bitcoin, which is why, a lot of people think there's still a massive move left to the upside for Bitcoin over time, because for as much as it feels like, that we've been waiting forever, we're still super early in this, in my opinion. What happened?
Australian breakdance union bought Bitcoin. Did you see that during that funniest thing?
I'm just seeing that as you're saying it. I was unaware of the Australian breakdancing union, but congratulations. What a forward-thinking bunch.
No, you didn't hear about them?
No, I know nothing about that. Is that a joke?
So out of the loop. He didn't watch the Olympics. That was funny. Let's put it this way. The Olympics already did away with breakdancing.
I was going to say, they're very forward-thinking, except they're doing something from the 80s. So.
This poor chick, she was the worst breakdancer I've ever seen in my life.
Did they have breakdancing at the Olympics? Is this what you're telling me? Is this what I'm to understand? Wayward saying Tom in a bubble. Yeah, I definitely, I did not follow the Olympics. I'm slammed right now with what I'm doing, and I'm also quietly trying to get in the loop on the rest of the cryptocurrency universe, altcoins, etc. Because I do think at some point, altcoin season is going to come around, and George knows a lot more about that universe than I do. So I've been spending a significant amount of time recently. So yes, I am in a little bubble. I'm in my Bitcoin cryptocurrency investing bubble here.
Are you more confused now than before you started?
That's every article I read, every video I watch. It's just, you want to talk about a rabbit hole. There is no end. But I'm trying to systematically, get to the bottom of some fundamental things here. But, the cryptocurrency universe is obviously, it is vast. And it's a scary, scary place. One of the things I've been looking at is all the different ways that people are creating and rug pulling, and because that's what I'm most afraid of. I'm really not invested in any altcoins, and there's a handful that are already well established. But beyond that, the tens of thousands of coins, the hundreds of thousands of tokens, I mean, it's mostly, to me, it mostly looks like stuff that I know I don't understand. I think I see people making money, and you always got to be careful that when you see somebody making 100x or 1000x, usually that's the developer, and they've rug pulled, and I'm sometimes it's not, but I'm just saying it shouldn't be someone's expectation that they're going to 100x or 1000x when they invest in an altcoin or anything. But having said that, the risk reward, you should be expecting, 5x, 10x, maybe, big. You should be expecting big rewards if you're going to take what I think is a super high risk, super high volatility world. So, yes, I am more confused now, George, than ever, but.
Well, it depends on how deep you want to get into it. It gets really crazy. And then still the utility of these things are just a joke.
That's what I'm finding is most of what's out there. And again, I'll quickly go to the list here. So, I'm not talking about these. I'm not talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum. I'm not talking about Solana and XRP. Even Dogecoin, which has no utility whatsoever. This is an established coin. Cardano, Tron, Avalanche, all these near the top here have been around for quite some time. I'm not talking about those. This list goes on, and thousands and thousands and thousands of coins. And, once you get out of by the time you get down to 50, this is a lot of money, but, you're down to a $1.4 billion market cap. Versus the ones that we're used to, Solana's $65 billion market cap. So, once you're up in this area, XRP's just under $32 billion market cap. These are, and they've been around for a much longer period of time. So, you know, you're not going to get 100x, or maybe you think you are, but, you know, you're much less likely on Bitcoin, Ethereum, these established coins, Binance. You know, you're not going to get, this is not 100x, 1000x territory in this altcoin season. But, you know, when you get down, the further you get down this list, the higher the risk and the higher the reward. But, you know, I'm out of the loop. So I'm trying to get, you know, a little bit. I'm never going to be the expert at this. But, you know, I'm trying to get up to speed, I guess is what I would say. I saw a couple people asking about Kaspa. Yeah, I'm very interested in Kaspa for the obvious reason. And it was Seeker that said, how much is Mara making with Kaspa? Not much news out there on Kaspa. So, I mean, Marathon is by far the largest miner of Kaspa. They intend on doubling their infrastructure to mine Kaspa. The only reason anybody even knows Kaspa exists is because Marathon put out a Kaspa-specific press release. So, you know, that was a big deal for that coin. And it didn't really get a monumental pump off of that. So you know, the things I know about it are, number one, it's proof of work. I'm very partial to proof of work, and there's very little of it left out there. So, you know, that's, I think, you know, Bitcoin maximalists are, you know, proof of work, favor proof of work. So I want to do a lot more research on that, but I do think having somebody like Marathon, you know, be a big part of your ecosystem, I do think there's potential in that. But again, I haven't bought any of it yet, and I want to keep looking. I'm trying to get up to speed, but it's for those kind of reasons. I'm looking at a Kaspa going, you know, can that 10x? I don't know, right? They've gotten themselves to a very high profile place, but it's done next to nothing so far. But it's not altcoin season. You can see none of these altcoins have done really anything, and it's not, Bitcoin dominance is still, it's off of its, you know, 3-year high, but it's still, you know, very high. If we go, let's go look at Bitcoin dominance, right? So this was its peak last Friday. It was at its peak, and you can see it climbed a lot today. It's still very near its peak, and this is a multi-year peak for Bitcoin dominance. So we're still in the Bitcoin part of this program. So that's why I'm trying to get up to speed now on the altcoins, because, you know, we will get to, well, you know, nobody can say definitively, but I assume at some point we will get to the altcoin portion of this deal, and I'd like to participate this time around. I understand it's very high risk. So I'll look to George for my cryptocurrency.
I'm reading about Kaspa on Reddit, and
What?
It's so funny.
Good, bad, awful.
It's just, you know,
you gotta always be careful what you read on Reddit.
oh,
It's funny because there's parts of Reddit that are incredibly reliable. Like if you're looking to do something technical or get advice on certain things, there's people that dedicate time and answer questions, and it's a great place. But yet other places on there are, let's just say, less credible than that.
I guess, you know, with somebody like you, Tom, that have standards and morals and values, you're not going to do too well in altcoins.
In the altcoin universe, it's degen.
No. Yeah, it's just basically people want to pump and pull before other people pull.
Well, I mean that may be what I find out.
Yeah, I was just reading in like a forum on Kaspa, and it's like, we just want to pump it. Who cares what utility it is?
Well, and I think that's a part of, you're right, George. The further down you go, the more, you know, the less utility you find. A lot of these straight out have no utility, and they're not shy about it. They've literally a lot of these tokens have no utility at all. They don't even pretend to have utility. They just have a a marketing plan, and they try and get people to buy their coins, saying, "Look, here's our plan we've laid out, and this is how we're going to 10x this or 100x it or whatever the case may be." So that's some of what I'm seeing in there, and those scare me. I mean, you're right. That does not inspire confidence in me.
No, that's not you.
That's not my nature. Somebody was just saying, Crypto Fever saying, keep it simple. If it ain't Bitcoin, don't buy it. And somebody else I saw, let's see, I can't find it, but somebody was saying, just stick to the top ones. See if I can find who said that.
Tom, we're almost
Robin.
50-50 on this Riot thing.
All right, so pretty close. We'll end that poll. Let's get out of there. So a lot of people object to Riot's dilution. That is no surprise to me. It is the reason I will end this poll, and then we'll take a look, and then let's get another poll up there. But if we go year to date, I mean, you can see this is as of the end of today. Bitcoin year to date's up 42% as of the time the U.S. equity markets closed today, and Riot's down 48%. So that is not a winning formula for those of us who are holding Riot stock. BitDeer cratered this week. So they announced that $150 million of stock dilution, and their market cap went down significantly more than the amount that they were raising. I don't know what happened, and that's why I bought some options. We'll see what happens if there's a little bounce back, but they were nowhere near the bottom of this list. Now they're in second last place on this list. Hive down 33%. Marathon, which is the largest market cap by far, they're down 31% on the year. Bit Digital down 30%. So you can see we only have 4 of the 12 that are in the green. And we are now back to, as predicted, I don't know why. And I will tell you, on the members only stream, I was puzzled. TerraWolf put out their financial statements, and I don't own any TerraWolf. I've actually been critical of certain things that they've done in the past, but my honest take on them was I thought that it was an encouraging quarterly report. And I was shocked that they were down 7-8% on the day. They were the big loser on the day, and it was just baffling to me. So since then, they've run up quite a bit. So that was a fake out. TerraWolf now has flipped back above Bitcoin's performance year to date. So let's see if we look at the daily on TerraWolf. Yeah, you can see, I mean, look what happened. Look at this giant red candle down to $3.29. So that's when, the after hours is when this is where it was when I was talking about it. And from that point until now, it's up 22%. So, that's from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's a nice run by TerraWolf. And that's what has allowed them to get back above Bitcoin for the year. And then Core Scientific at 82%. Somebody did point out this Core Scientific number. They came out of bankruptcy, I think, on January 24th. So it's not quite apples to apples with the rest of the group. It's worth noting. So this is year to date. And this is not a pretty picture for the Bitcoin miners. And I know a lot of us are holding some of these one or some of these Bitcoin miners. There's some people like Edmund that switched over to MicroStrategy and Bitcoin. George, you're now just in the cryptocurrencies, and temporarily for the next month, you're out of the equities anyway.
31 days.
31 days, that's right.
And then you look at, isn't this crazy to see how many have gotten beat up this year? It's crazy.
I see McNally Money. Welcome to the stream. And I see McNally Money saying Riot will do well going forward. So we agree on that. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for popping in. And I agree with you. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I hold Riot. I did add to it on the dip, and obviously not financial advice. And so far this year, I've been dead wrong, but I'm glad to see that you feel the same way I do on that one. So we'll see how it works out.
If anybody tracks the movements of ships, of military ships specifically, how come I'm a doomer and gloomer right now? I mean, we're going to war with somebody. Whoever pisses us off first is going to get some bombs dropped on them.
Here's my optimistic outlook on that. Ready? I'll bring the optimism to the table. Hopefully, sometimes, and I know, there's been some what do they call them? The carriers that have moved into certain regions. Hopefully that is a deterrent.
It scares them.
Aircraft, right. Hopefully that's a deterrent.
So think about this. I don't know if anybody's ever gone to an air show and you hear those freaking jets going screaming by. It is like, I get the EBGs. It's like the best feeling in the world. Well, what if you're having them drop bombs on? That's got to be the worst sound in the world.
That's the flip side of that. That's right.
Yeah, I was like, oh my goodness, how different your life would be.
So there's my hopeful outtake, is that, sometimes you do those things and hopefully everybody's trying to work towards more peaceful resolution. But I understand. I mean, it is nerve-wracking. That's scary. It's scary stuff. We got to hope for the best.
Then, we got a blue moon coming on Monday, by the way.
A blue moon.
A blue moon. The last blue moon was not good for Bitcoin.
It was the last one. How often do we get a blue moon, George, if you know?
We don't get them that often.
So it's a rarity?
So 6-ish. Yeah, let me look it up, Tom. I'm going to let Google do the answer for me.
Perfect. And meanwhile,
somebody yell at me.
QWERTY, who thank you for being a member, said Riot January 2025, $20 calls look cheap. So not financial advice, but that's what QWERTY has to say. And again, thanks for being a member.
Oh, wow. 33 months on average. That's interesting.
Once every 33 months?
Yep.
So that is a rare indeed. Well, maybe that's our day we pump. Bitcoin pumps.
It could be. Maybe it's the exact opposite. Oh, wait. Maybe I'm like George on Seinfeld.
Oh, you do the opposite.
I'm the exact opposite of everything George does. Up is down, down is up, left is right, right is left.
Whatever you think you should do the exact opposite.
Exact opposite. And that would have worked in the stock market, by the way, Tom. Every single time.
Right. How many times is that true? Sad but true.
Oh, yeah.
Just to go through a little bit of a recap. Today was a positive day. We didn't really kind of recap what's going on. So day over day, well, I don't have to do the math because these ETFs do it for us. You can see, so IBIT, which is the BlackRock ETF, was up 4.71% today. So that's a mirror of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was up significantly today. You can see that. This is the 15-minute chart. Again, this is where Bitcoin, the gold line down here at 57,000-ish, was where Bitcoin was when the U.S. equity markets closed yesterday. So what a difference one day can make. Now, we're still under 60, and you can see, I mean, if I draw a line, we kind of topped right out at the exact same. This was the peak yesterday. We kind of retested that and for the moment failed, but I hold out hope over the weekend, although lately the weekends have not been great. The weekends have not been kind to Bitcoin. So we'll see what happens this weekend. So let's have that be the next poll. Just a super simple, I'm not even going to put numbers to it. Just a super simple question. Yes or no? Because the last couple, will Bitcoin go up over the weekend? The last couple of weekends, especially Sunday, seems to be like things are going along and they're going along and then boom, a giant sell-off on Sunday. Now, I don't know if that's corresponding with the Asian markets opening. My Sunday night is Monday morning and elsewhere in the rest of the world. So I'm not sure, but there's been a big sell-off. I will say there's a lot of speculation, although I haven't seen anybody totally prove it. There's a massive amount of speculation that the US has been dumping Bitcoin. And that's one of the reasons that we're at these lower numbers. So I've seen several of the very large YouTubers and a lot of other YouTubers across the board try and make the case and show, it would appear that the US is dumping some Bitcoin. I don't know that that's true. They certainly have moved some on exchange. So I've seen, everybody play out their theories, but I don't think anybody can specifically exactly say that's what's happening. I don't know. I don't know who's buying. I don't know who's selling. And I've become, more and more trying to tell everybody, and myself included, worrying less about, what's happening today, as long as, we're still, I'm going to go to the 1 day. As long as we're still inside of this range. Actually, let me go to this chart that I think shows this a little better. So we looked at this, I think, last week. If not, it might have been on the members, but I think we did it on last Friday's live stream. So you can see we're inside of a channel here. This goes back to March. So this is when Bitcoin hit its all-time high. For the first time ever prior to a halving, it hit its all-time high. And since then, we've been in kind of a descending channel. These are lower highs. These are lower lows. But we've been inside of this channel. You'll see we found pretty good support. We're kind of in the middle of it right now. So, which direction are we to go in? These are the areas where it's hard to tell where we're going. And obviously, there's no guarantee that these lines of support and resistance are going to hold. Clearly, we hope that at some point, and what we talked about at length on the members only stream was, we'd like to see, we have failed, you can't say you failed here, but this is once, twice, 3 times we tested this descending line of support and failed. So, is the 4th time the charm? Can we get back up here and have this breakthrough? Because if so, the other way to look at this, if you zoom out a little bit, is, this is
the chart that scared me, Tom.
This is potentially a giant bull flag. The question is, when or if, and this would not be confirmed. So what we need to have for this to be a bull flag that plays out, we need to confirm a breakout above this line. So to me, not just one daily candle. Well, the first thing we need to do is close the daily candle above this line. And this line right now, and you could draw this a little bit of different ways. So depending on how you draw this line, somewhere between $68,000 and $70,000 would be, under 70,000, because I have it pretty high and I'm at 69.6. So if we could get above that, maybe get back above 70,000, close the daily candle, confirm that, and then maybe get above this and test and see if this can turn into support, bounce off of this. And then we will have confirmed this being what is a gigantic bull flag, because you can see this started at around 40,000. This was a 40 to 70 something thousand run. So the price target, if this were to break out, and I'd hate to even say these numbers because, again, we have not confirmed this. We have not confirmed a breakout by any means. But if I zoom out some more.
Tom, we are in no man's land. This is so true. It's 50-50 up or down. It's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed. So, if I take this, basically that would be, if we were to break out, and this is not a fair, we can't break out here, because that's the past, but, this would be over $100,000 price target on this bull flag over, an extended period of time, right? Because it took a long time to get here. So it could be, it could be October, November, who knows? This is what I think we're hoping for over the course of, 60, 90, 120 days. But again, we could go down before we go up. And the flip side of this universe is, if this doesn't hold and we break out of here from a daily candle close standpoint, and again, you'd like to see a daily candle close, you'd like to see confirmation of that. But if we do that, then it could potentially be the price target back down to the bottom of where this started at 40,000. So, who knows? So to your point, George, this is smack dab in the middle of nowhere.
It's 50-50. It goes either way. My only problem is the war, and also because of the current stance on crypto by the current administration. You have one person saying they think Bitcoin's good, and you have another one saying it's bad. You have
Well,
one saying, I want it to be, mine's pretty much only here in the United States. And you got another one saying, hey, it takes up a lot of energy. It's not good for the environment. And everybody here knows the truth. So, I mean, but if you start seeing, there's just a lot of negativity against it right now, unfortunately.
I will tell you, in the last few days, since the last time we had a stream, here in the United States, I know we have people from around the world, and but a lot of you are from the U.S., a lot of you are from Canada, from the U.K., and all other points beyond. So, yeah, drop in the chat where you're from. Love to see who's joining us. We have an election coming up here in 80 or 85 days in the United States. So it is that time of the 4-year cycle, but I will tell you, I'm now seeing a lot come out from, let's just put names to it. Donald Trump showed up at the Bitcoin conference and said a lot of, very pro Bitcoin things. Now that is a reversal. So a lot of people will point to this and say, well, he used to say Bitcoin's a scam. And then that is true. He did say that. But, I think there's an underlying reason that there was a flip-flop on that, and I'm not trying to get political, and please, everybody, this is not a political channel, but if you listen to what the argument is, and a lot of the Republicans feel this way, is that Bitcoin is the last line of defense against a CBDC, and, they do not want a digital US dollar. So that's a big part of the argument that they're making, and that's one of the reasons that's a flip. But I will say now I'm starting to see some things come out of the Democratic side that are all of a sudden, in the last 48 hours, all of a sudden starting to open the door to maybe being positive pro Bitcoin. I think they held some kind of Bitcoin meet or cryptocurrency meeting, and so my biggest takeaway from that is now all of a sudden, we're having a U.S. presidential election and you've got both candidates talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So that is a giant step in the right direction. Wherever your politics are, whatever the case may be, right? This was not a conversation 4 years ago. So we're now in the new 4-year cycle, and it's a part of the maturity process. This just goes to the growing adoption and kind of, I think, the fact that everybody has now reconciled to the fact 4 years ago, there was still a big argument. Oh, this is all going to zero. It's nothing. It doesn't exist. Pay no attention. And there's nobody left. That camp doesn't exist anymore. Cryptocurrency is now here. It's now here to stay. You can argue how successful it's going to be, but I'm going to go through some articles. Everybody just had to put out their holdings, and I was surprised at some of the people already in Bitcoin, some big, giant names, and they've only just begun. So, that is going to be a continuing part of our conversation. Bitcoin adoption is the way Bitcoin gets from this 60,000 to, I'm looking at maybe 150 in this cycle. I know a lot of people think it's going to go a lot higher in this cycle. And then, if you listen to Michael Saylor, he thinks it's going to get to $49 million 20 or 25 years from now. So, and we've got price predictions everywhere in between. So we got Tom Lee, who said 150,000 by the end of 2024. I think that's ultra optimistic, but we have a lot of very bullish price targets on Bitcoin, and you can see there is adoption. Now, having said that, if we go back to this 1-day chart, we've been sideways for 5 months. This has been very frustrating. Sideways with a bias, towards the downside, but within a range for 5 months now. And that is exhausting. In cryptocurrency years, that's like a century. So, or at least that's what it feels like.
How long was it sideways last time after the halving?
So 6 months is extremely typical. 6 months, 7 months. So yes. Right. That's a great point, George. I mean, this is business as usual. But a couple of things I think make it feel worse. Number one, you know, everybody's attention span with each passing year, and this is just my personal opinion, it seems like our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And the other thing is, you know, we had this big run up early in this cycle because of the ETF. So I think optimism was a little higher that we'd be at a better spot than this right now. But it turns out this is acting a lot more like all the other cycles than maybe I thought it was going to. And maybe a lot of people, you know, a lot of people thought we were going to be higher than this right now. George, you were not one of those people ever. So
No.
you've been saying all along, we thought we were going to get punished a couple of more times. And they weren't done.
Well, it's the nature of the game. It's no different than, you know, shorting a stock, right?
That's right.
I'm actually surprised that Bitcoin has held up as well as it has.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just so sad. Some guy is just making so much freaking money off of this thing. There's multiple people just killing it every single day. Because you need to have a range. And this is the one thing that is different than a few months ago, is the range is a lot better. Remember, a few months ago, it was like freaking steady. Now we're moving up and down 1,000 here, you know, 2,000 here, down 15, up 2,000. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
and that's how you make money.
Yeah, there've been
good profit.
Right. Look at a lot of these candles are big. Look at this. I mean, this was the flash crash day. That is a gigantic candle, and these are red, but still people make money on the way down. Giant candle, giant candle, giant candle, giant green candle.
This is a computer program without a question of a doubt, because you can start to see patterns that have formed very well without the breakouts. Not talking about the breakouts, but with the pattern, you can see a pattern forming that's been forming like for months now. So someone is killing it. I mean, remember the guy that we met at the conference? I mean, this is crazy.
Right. People like that. He's sitting there trading them, you know, minute by minute.
Sorry, see, I don't know how to turn the volume up. I'll see if I can.
Are you quiet, George? Your volume's too low. Let me see if there's anything I can do on this end.
Yeah,
I just put you to 100 over here.
Well, maybe that'll help. Did that help any? See?
You were at 90.
Oh, and Pogo brought up something, and I don't want to miss it, about the DXY being so low. That's another reason why I'm so disappointed in Bitcoin. I thought Bitcoin would be a lot stronger because of the DXY.
Let's go to the DXY, because it's funny, you know, this is just right. We talked for a long, long time. This green line right here, this is what we were hoping for and hoping for and hoping for. But several things happened at the same time. You know, we were hoping to get back to, this is the strength of the US dollar. So we were hoping that this would get back down. This green line was, as of 2022, this was a 20-year high for the DXY. So you can see since 2022, for the last 2.5 years, we've been hanging out in this area. But every time, you know, the bigger pumps happen when we have these moves down. In the past, that's when we've gotten nice moves to the upside, right? This is March 8th. So that was, you know, within a week of Bitcoin hitting its all-time high is the last time we had this big pullback. This time we've had this big pullback. We're underneath, you know, we're right where we've said we've been wanting to be. And all of a sudden the correlation, you know, back here, the correlation, the inverse correlation broke. And so this is where it's hard, you know, and I try to always tell people, remember, no one data point is perfect. So I know a lot of people live and die by this DXY, and there's several other that, you know, certain people get married to one thing and they say, well, this is how it works and just watch this and you'll succeed. But there have been several examples where in the short term, this breaks, right? Because they, along with this, came a lot of fear in the market. And so, you know, where we should have got our pump, there was a lot of fear in the market. We've gotten through a lot of very big, you know, Germany sold all their Bitcoin. Mt. Gox is unloading their Bitcoin. We've had a bunch of things happening. Now we have, you know, high levels of suspicion that a lot of the Silk Road Bitcoin is being dumped by the U.S. government. I haven't been able to confirm that, but that is, you know, a gigantic talking point that's out there right now. Grayscale's coming up on having sold 400,000 Bitcoin in the last 6 months. So, there's been selling pressure, and it goes back to the point. That's why you have to try to look at, if you're going to trade technically, you got to look at a lot of technical data points and try and get a real consensus. And even then, there are no guarantees in investing. That is just how it goes. But you're right, George. I mean, this is exactly what we were hoping for right here. We got it, and we didn't get our move in Bitcoin. So this.
Well, and so what I'm thinking is that this is probably the bottom of the DXY.
Right. Well, I mean.
Yeah, look at it. It's right
all
there.
Year. So year 2024, this has been the bottom. So
right, and I expect it to go back up, and that's not typically good for Bitcoin.
And so we've also seen
this
a move.
Weekend up until Monday is a crucial time for Bitcoin.
You're saying over the weekend?
Yeah, because on Monday it will decide whether we're going to pump, whether this is the pump, which it probably is because I sold, or is it going to still remain flat? Which I don't expect it to dump or anything. I just expect it to remain flat.
Oh, you already saw this. Sorry for the interruption. Hello, Sean. Welcome. And hello, JJT. So this happened, and we talked about this. If you remember, we got the bad jobs report a couple of weeks ago, and that the market tanked on a Friday, and then it tanked again on Monday. And on that Friday, I said, I think this is a drastic overreaction. And you can't see it now because it was 2 weeks ago, and so it doesn't show it. But the market had pretty much priced in this September meeting a 50 basis point rate cut. And the discussion was, if you remember, for about 3 or 4 days, the discussion was, are we going to get a 50 basis point rate cut at the September meeting, or is the Fed going to do an emergency meeting and do it even sooner than that? So, that's how much fear got into this market. It has settled down. You can see now all of a sudden the market is now at almost 75% that we're only going to get a 25 basis point rate cut in the September meeting. So this has settled way back down. It felt like the change was so dramatic in one day. And that's where I had the same exact conversation. It was that unemployment coming in at 4.3% that was a surprise. That is one data point. So we had the same exact conversation 2 Fridays ago that no one data point should dictate this massive type of a move in the market. Unless it's, to George's point that he likes to talk about from time to time, unless it's a black swan level type of event, data point or event, for the unemployment to come in, 0.2% higher than we were expecting, that is not some type of game changing, everything's changed scenario. We get a steady flow of data. So some of the data that's come in since then has moved the market back into a more realistic place.
Do you think the DXY will go down if they cut rates?
Yeah, I think the DXY will stay where it is. If we keep getting the, because we've now moved into this scenario, I am encouraged that maybe we won't get a pop in the DXY, because you can see this number jumped up to 75, from 25% to 75%. So all of that actually should have created a pop in the DXY, and we didn't get it. So the fact that we were able to have this shift and still keep that down, hopefully, over time, the US dollar should not stay this strong versus foreign currencies forever over time. So you would still, even if this goes, significantly lower than here, back to where it was in December, or, this was in July of 2023, it was, under 100. This is still ultra high. If I zoom out to the 1 week here, right, you're going to see we're in a range right here. And obviously, we peaked, we had a blow off top right here, but we're in a couple of year range where we are unusually high. Right? If I go back 20 years, this is 20 years ago. So for the last 20 something years, this was a place that we hit on rare occasions. So I do think that over, the next this should settle down. But it's been
Yeah,
years.
But what happens to inflation at that point in time?
Well, hopefully a part of this settling down is that inflation continues to,
Yeah.
the CPI numbers continue to come down. And, again, we have suffered massive inflation. I'm talking about the U.S. I think for those of you who are around the world, you probably have had a similar experience. If you're in other spots, let us know how your inflation's been. But, our inflation was horrendous. And it's an important reminder, and I know that 99% of you know this, but 2.9% CPI number, that's the lowest number we've had in 3 years, but that still means that there's 2.9% inflation. So that means the price of stuff is still going up, and it's going up. That's compounding because we had much higher numbers. So the price of everything under the sun is up. The one thing that helps these a little bit is oil has come down off of its highs. But if oil were to turn around and spike, then, things could move in the wrong direction. So, that's just one thing. Crypto Fever is saying, George, the DXY will dump as soon as we get that first rate cut. So I hope you're right, Crypto Fever. And I still do think we're going to get a series of rate cuts. It just may not be at one point, in a 24-hour period, the market went from pricing in somewhere either 1 or 2 rate cuts in 2024 to between 4 to 6 25 basis point rate cuts. So, the market went from a 25 to 50 basis point rate cut for the year to, maybe 100 to 150 basis points. And it jumped in there in one day. And now it's pulled back a little to a more reasonable spot. And hopefully we'll stay on target. And then so it is true what Crypto Fever is saying. The market does want to see it to believe it. Just because it's priced into the futures doesn't mean it's going to happen. And we've seen that. We've seen those numbers change dramatically over time. So we got to actually get there. We got to actually get that first rate cut. And then it should be followed up with a series of rate cuts, in my opinion. But obviously, future data points could change that. If all of a sudden we see inflation start to scream again, then that's going to make it more difficult. We're at 96 likes. Sorry to interrupt you, George. We're at 96 likes. If you guys could do us a favor, get us to 100, we would appreciate it. Sorry, go ahead, George.
Do you think the BRICS nations are having any effect on the dollar strength or the DXY?
I would say that is a resounding no, in my opinion, seeing as how we are still hovering somewhere around a 20-plus year high for the strength of the dollar. I really just think it's really what Crypto Fever said. We need to see a couple of things. We need inflation to stay in check. We need the interest rates we need to start seeing rate cuts in the U.S., and we need to start seeing some quantitative easing. We need to see the government start to push some money out into the market in some way, shape, or form. Those are the things that I think the market is expecting is going to happen between now and the end of the year. So if they do happen, that's how we get, our pullback. And all of those things would be very bullish for Bitcoin in theory.
Do you track the M1 or M2 number?
No, not on a regular basis at all. Okay. Ethan is saying inflation will come back again, Tom. So,
yeah.
I mean, that could be true. We could be in a world where inflation comes back and the Fed is still backed into a corner and have to lower rates, even with rising inflation. So we'll see what happens. There's going to be massive pressure if the economy doesn't do. We got a couple of good numbers. The jobless reports was a little better than expected. That calmed everybody down. The retail numbers came in higher than expected. That calmed everybody down. Walmart, had good things to say. So there were a few things that kind of lowered the temperature in the room, but we'll see.
Did you see LL Flooring?
No. What happened? That's it. Well, there goes your discounts. Well, not really. That Chapter 11?
Well, I think so, yeah.
Oh, well, there it is.
Yeah, it's funny because I almost bought a whole bunch of floor again. But now I think I can get it cheap again. But the prices have gone through the roof
I see some people in here thinking inflation's going to come back.
Oh, totally. I totally do.
I mean, it's not like it's gone. 2.9%. I mean, the Fed's target is 2%. So 2.9 historically is not a great number. It's just the last 3 years, it's been worse than that every single month for the last 3 years. So, you know, comparatively speaking, this was a good number.
Yeah, how does Ring Around the Rosy end, Tom? Everybody with a pocket full of posies or whatever?
I don't know. There was some horrible actual underlying meaning to that. I think it had to do with like the plague.
That's why I said it, by the way. There was a hidden message there, my friend.
Crypto Fever saying Bitcoin flourishes in this market environment. So I hope you're right. That's what we're counting on. Will Bitcoin go up over the weekend? 72 to 28. 72% think yes, it will go up over the weekend. Let's go a little more long-term, bigger picture than that.
Tom, hopefully next week I can get back to Atlanta.
You looking to get back to home base?
Home base. For like a week or two, and then I got to go to Naples.
Okay, will Bitcoin hit $100,000 by the end of 2024? We are now in the middle of August. So there's not a lot of runway left here. We got 4.5 months. Can Bitcoin get to 100,000? So that, if you remember, we went through that bull flag, and so that would be that scenario playing out. And there's a lot of people out there talking about, you know, September, October, November being giant. That's another consensus that I see building up amongst the people on, whether it be on cable or on YouTube, that sometime in the fall, in the late fall, there's going to be, you know, that's when Bitcoin is going to run. So, you know, obviously that's anybody's best guess, but it does seem to be a growing consensus around that. So also, you know, I'm sure the first thing all you think of is be careful of when everybody agrees on something, you know, because
Tom, you know what is funny? Last year, I'm just looking at why I invest in miners and stuff like that. I'm going to give you, I think it was last year I got out at the end of July, and that's when it took off.
You missed it last year.
No. Well, I made so much money in the stock market last year that I got crushed on taxes. So I didn't want to have that happen again this year. So that's the reason I'm out.
Well, it's
I don't understand my strategy either. It's
the old scenario. You know, it's a good problem to making so much money. You got a tax problem.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was last year I made more than 6 figures. So maybe that's bad. Maybe that's good. I don't know.
Crypto Fever saying, Jeff, if the internet goes down, your gold and silver is no good either. Well, yeah, then Bitcoin's no good. Gold's no
Guns
good.
And ammo. Don't forget the Bible too.
Yes. Let's not live in scenarios. Let's not live in the apocalyptic scenarios here. That's beyond a black swan event. Not saying, you know, not saying anything can't happen. I'm just saying if your investment strategy is based on that, then yes, get out of everything because none of it's going to be worth anything.
Yeah, but I don't even know if you can keep cash. I mean, what good is that going to be?
Right. I mean, that includes cash. A hoard. Somebody in here said physical assets. Yeah, that would be your apocalyptic scenario.
Why do you think I have a body like this? Physical asset. I figure I got 30 days stored up right here, like a bear.
Let's see. Calvin's asking, are you holding any AI miners? The biggest one of the miners that I'm holding, the miners that I have positions in, and again, this is not financial advice. Please don't do what I do. Do your own thing. But Marathon, and that's not really an AI play at all. Riot, Cleanspark, Bitfarms, and then Iris Energy, or IRON, as they now prefer to be called. IRON does consider themselves an AI play, and I think they're going to be talking more and more and more about that. They haven't done as much as some of their competitors, but they've been talking for the last year and a half about the fact that they actually they call themselves internally a data center company. They know they believe their expertise is in building the best data centers. They believe they have expertise in building AI infrastructure. So, they're talking about bigger things there. It's a very small piece of their puzzle. And they have huge exahash growth plans. There are a few companies that have already made much bigger moves. To me, the biggest moves that have been made inside of this space, the Core Scientific has one contract that's bigger than all the other AI contracts of all the other Bitcoin mining companies put together by far. So, if you're going to go straight, which one's an AI play, Core Scientific would be in first place. BitDigital has a significant, as a percent of their revenue, as a percent of their business, BitDigital has a lot of AI. But there are several other companies beyond that are touting that they're building out AI infrastructure, and AI is going to be a big part of their future. And Iris Energy, or IRON, is one of those. And that kind of is my play on that, because on the flip side, the thing George doesn't like about IRON is they do not hodl any of their Bitcoin. So I think that's consistent with they're growing as a company. They consider themselves a data center company. Yes, obviously they are mining Bitcoin. I don't know if someday they will start hodling some, but in the meantime, so that's really the only one of the 5 that I hold. That's the only one that talks significantly about AI. Bitfarms does talk about, AI data centers. Obviously, Hut 8 has several data centers, and they've shifted significantly more towards that. So I guess you can put them on the list as well.
Tom, do you remember when we would talk and I would say, hey, I just had a 6-figure day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
There you go,
we've said that some of those were days we had live streams.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there,
there's with what's crazy about the miners, and I mean, one of the things that excites me about it is when they're going, dude, it's a freaking ride and a half.
You've had some big wins and some big losses. It's been a roller, but you know what? I mean, the only difference for me is mine's all unrealized because I haven't sold,
Right.
but I've had giant swings in my portfolio. And
I was just insane to think about it. I mean, that's why I guess it hurts so much to see where we're at again.
Well, I mean,
the last time I did this for 30 days, it was it wasn't really the wrong decision, because you're still saving like 38% or 30 something crazy. So it would have to go up almost 40% before I start losing money.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right, because you were able to take the loss to offset your gains.
Right. So right now I have to go up 40%. And it isn't just, this is a tax strategy. This isn't just on investing. This is on my whole portfolio.
Midway said, IRON has had at least 6 AI clients up in Canada so far, but no very long-term contracts yet. So I think that's encouraging. And I think a lot of these are, we're still very early stage. You think we're early stages on cryptocurrency. We're much earlier on AI and AI infrastructure build out. And, this is the pick and shovel play on AI, the Bitcoin miners. They're the infrastructure plays. And, I think there is a lot more of that to come. I vastly prefer the Bitcoin side of this, but But I must admit, some of these companies are getting big contracts. Now, one of the things is we haven't gotten to see yet. Time will tell. Like, for instance, Core Scientific has, a multi-billion dollar contract, but that's over 12 years, and there's 2 5-year options on that. So we don't know how that's going to play out yet. Right? For any of these, we don't exactly know how it's going to play out. But, obviously that we don't know where Bitcoin's going either. So, there's risk in everything. So to the companies that are doing both successfully, that may be a great strategy.
You're not getting a dollar loss for every dollar you claim on your taxes. But I am for my investment income.
If it offsets, right? If you can offset $1 gain with a $1 loss, then you brought your income back down to zero.
Right. I
think
how would that work on W-2?
Well, your W-2 income is its own. We are not. This is not financial advice. It's not tax planning advice. Please, if you're looking to figure out how to do that, go talk to an expert. Right? And especially since every state is different, every country is different.
Tom, you are an expert.
I am not an expert. I am absolutely. Let's make that that is false. That is 100% false. So do not go. Please talk to your professionals on investing as well. Right? We are entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, what he said. Do you think if Riot doesn't get Bitfarms, they will sell?
That they will sell their shares?
Yes.
Yeah, I think if they don't get them, that they will sell their shares. So let's go. Thank you, George, because there's a few things we haven't gotten to yet. We're getting late in the stream. And that was one of them. So Riot, on August 13th, Riot reports 18.9% ownership in Bitfarms. So remember last week when they reported it was 16.9%. It's now 18.9%. So I guess the next thing we're going to get is 19.9 because 20% is when the new poison pill would kick in if that one holds up. The last one didn't. So, I mean, they have not backed off of this in any way, shape, or form. So this goes in tandem with another press release that came out this week. So as Riot continues to build ownership in their direct competitor, one of the things in this week's press release was different than last week's press release, and I will tell you why. Bitfarms announces board of director and leadership update. So this came out on August 13th. Co-founder and chairman Nicholas Bonta, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, steps down. So this was the chairman of the board. So in the week prior to this, when Riot disclosed a 16.9% ownership in Bitfarms, they stated they want Nicholas Bonta to step down and be removed from the board of directors. So that happened. So they don't have to say that this week. They still talk about the fact that they're looking to add multiple members to the board. They're looking for, so on June 24th, Riot announced that it has requisitioned a special meeting of shareholders at which Riot will seek to remove certain directors from the company's board and replace them with independent director candidates. They have specified those candidates. And last week, they specifically called out that, they were looking for Nicholas to step down. And that happened. So for as much as I want to keep saying Riot's not buying Bitfarms, because I don't think they are, I don't think they're going to be successful. They keep buying stock. They're the biggest shareholder. They now have gotten the chairman of the board to step down. So change is happening here. With all that said, it doesn't make sense to me. I just don't see how this plays out, but I guess, anything's possible.
This is poker, Tom.
Well, that's right. And Jason's a poker player.
You realize this could be the best move if they get somebody and talk to somebody and move them to the United States. This could be one of the best moves made of all time, whether they become part of Riot or not.
Robin's saying Bitfarms once again are in the top 5 placers for mining operations for Q2. Bitfarms is the little engine that could. So that's what, I mean, that's how I feel about it. They mined the 5th most amount of Bitcoin in July out of all the Bitcoin miners. And
No, I can't.
they've been very successful operationally speaking. It's not their operations. Their financials look good, in my opinion. They just put out their financials. You guys can go look at them yourselves. But to me, it seems like everything's going well for Bitfarms. They talked about a plan. They're executing their plan. But yet at the same time, their stock price is pretty suppressed. And, clearly Riot would not be spending, this is, 100 or $150 million that they've spent buying shares of Bitfarms. So they're not doing that for fun.
They don't need to announce, is it just a quarterly announcement to beat up the price? If they wanted to start selling and screwing with the price?
Well, this is from Bitfarms. So Bitfarms has to disclose to the SEC when there's certain thresholds. So if you look over here, this was filed by Bitfarms to the SEC, and it talks about Riot platforms, so number of shares that they own, the percent that they own. So when a major shareholder makes moves, there's certain parameters, and I'm not going to, I don't know exactly what they are. So, you can look that up for yourself, but it's actually Bitfarms that discloses this. So yes, if they start selling, we're going to know. So yeah, with all that said, I mean, as they buy, 18.9% of one of what I think is their main competitors, Riot is the biggest underperforming stock of the year. So if we go back to that chart, Bitfarms is down 18% on the year, and Riot's down 48% on the year. And for all I know, one of the things that's helping Bitfarms is that, Riot put a bid in at $2.30, which they've subsequently retracted, but it may be keeping their price around there. I think it's their operational reports. I think Bitfarms continues to have good monthly operational reports. And the day they put out their financial statements, their stock jumped 22%. So I think it's clear the market liked their financial statements. Calvin is asking, any upcoming deep dives or interviews for members only? So let's do that on the Tuesday live stream. We will pick one of the Bitcoin miners to do a deep dive on, Calvin. That is a good, I'm going to make that note. That's a good idea. We haven't done that in a little bit. And we did just get all of the financial statements and whatnot. So there's a lot of deep dives to do, some of which are more a members only thing, because there's, even though we paired this list, we were following 19 Bitcoin miners. We knocked 7 of them off the list by popular demand. There were 7 of them that the vast majority of people did not care about or want to see anymore. But even out of these 12, most of these are not popular among retail investors. I know in this group, we know these 12 companies, but, amongst the rest of the retail universe, some of these are much more popular than others.
Did you think this year would go anything like it's gone?
Every year continues to surprise me. So, no, I did not. And the year's not over yet. So we'll see. And to your point, the current poll is, will Bitcoin hit 100,000 by the end of 2024? 64% So almost 2/3 think yes, Bitcoin will hit 100,000. So we will finally break out of this trading range and have the next move up. 64% think yes, 36% think no. And that doesn't mean, so I'm going to just quickly change this. So thank you everybody for voting. Let's do just a follow-up poll on that. If I change that to okay, so if I change that to $80,000. Oh, sorry, I did a question and answer. That's not what I'm looking to do. Do a poll. Pardon my typing. Okay, so if I go instead of 100,000, will Bitcoin hit 80,000 by the end of 2024? So again, we got 4.5 months left. Are we going to break out? And that doesn't mean that it's on or above 80,000 on December 31st. We know there's a lot of fluctuations, but are we going to break out of this range, have a move to the upside, and hit 80,000 by the end of the years? Calvin's asking, Tom, what don't you like about Bitfarms? You have quite a liking for them, but I'm curious as to what you don't like about them. I mean, I can't, nothing jumps out off the page at me on what I don't like about Bitfarms. I've held on to that for a long time through the last cycle. Some of them I sold and got out of in time in the last cycle. Bitfarms I held and added a lot during the downturn. I have a high level of conviction in Bitfarms. So, are they a perfect company? No, but if I was to say what I don't like about them, I can tell you some of the things that I think aren't on par with the leaders in this, right? Their balance sheet is nowhere near as strong as a Riot or a Marathon or a Cleanspark. Those three balance sheets stand out. But, having said that, Bitfarms got rid of all their debt. They had a bunch of debt. They had a problem. And they solved that problem. They continue to improve their strength of balance sheet. So, their balance sheet isn't quite as strong as others. Their growth plans are, I think, excellent. But no, they're not going to be a top 3 miner. But if, they want to get to 21 exahash by the end of this year, 35 by the end of next year. So, I don't think there's any giant weakness. I guess if there's any weakness, it would be they've had 5 CEOs in the last 5 years. They just had, very unusual circumstances with what ended up being, firing their CEO. I absolutely, I'm a huge fan of Ben, so he ultimately got the job. I think, there was some confusion in the middle. So, as a part of, the management and business side of things, that's where Riot is trying to attack them and say, they got a management problem. They got a board of directors problem. I don't know about any of that. I see their financial statements, their monthly operational updates, and I like what I see. So, I mean, that's my opinion. And I think you got Ben now steering the ship. And I think to a certain extent, operationally, he's been steering the ship for years. So I like the company. Obviously every company has its pros and cons, but, I don't see them falling down anywhere, in my opinion. And Wayward saying deep dives, BitDeer and Cores. So those would definitely be 2 that have much less popular retail that would be good candidates for the members. So thanks for the suggestion, Wayward. I think every one of these companies, there is no perfect Bitcoin miner, and we're at a time. So let me go to an article because that plays right into one of the things I was going to talk about. Man, we didn't get to most of what I was going to talk about. This is crazy. Okay, this from JP Morgan, and I mentioned at the top that I did have an article from JP Morgan. They do like to say bad things about Bitcoin, just in my opinion. So whether you consider this FUD or not, this article came out today. Bitcoin mining profitability fell to all-time lows in August, JP Morgan analyst says. So I might disagree a little bit with the methodology here, but to his point, US listed miners' share of the network hash rate increased to 26% this month, the highest level on record. So the companies we're following, and they're actually, they're all 12 of the companies we're following are listed on the NASDAQ. So I don't know if he's considering those US listed. I guess those are US listed companies. Some of those are not US based companies, but they're all listed on the NASDAQ. So I think that's what he's talking about. So that's an all-time high percentage, and that should grow because as the network is growing, we see most of these Bitcoin miners are trying to get way ahead of the pace that the network is growing at and get back to or beyond where they were as far as the number of Bitcoin that they were mining per month prior to the halving. So there's massive growth plans for these companies. Robbie, thank you very much for the super chat. Thank you. Much appreciated. And Robbie said, appreciate your efforts here and everyone's input. We're all winners in this sector within a year. Take those profits, folks. So I hope that you are right, Robbie. I think that you're right? I mean, the next 12 months, at some point, we should get the big part of the bull run for Bitcoin. And historically, the Bitcoin miners have followed along. So I think that's what we're here for. Go ahead, George.
Thanks for including me.
Yes. So that's the big picture. That's the zoom out scenario. If things go as planned, a year from now, everyone here is going to be a happy camper. So, we'll see what happens. In the meantime, we're going to get volatility. We're going to get FUD. We're going to have ups and downs. Mining profitability fell to all-time lows as the network hash rate rose in the first 2 weeks of August, the report said. So if we look, I do want to point out one thing, as they're talking about the network hash rate at an all-time high and profitability at an all-time low. I want to go to a chart here. Where did it go? So we did just have 2 days ago an adjustment to the difficulty level. So on July 31st, we had a giant adjustment to the upside. We were tracking that. It ended up being 10.5%. So the first 2 weeks of August, that was a big adjustment in the difficulty level. But you'll see the adjustment we just got was down 4%. So, that helps the Bitcoin miners obviously get this. This was rough. So we'll see how the August numbers are. We still have a lot of the US Bitcoin mining companies getting a lot of exahash online and improving the amount of exahash they have every month. There's still companies that have a lot of room to go in their efficiency as far as the number of Bitcoin they mine per exahash. But this was good to see, from my perspective, holding Bitcoin miners, the difficulty level went down. So, counterpoint to this, to JP Morgan, we did just get a big adjustment to the downside. So the second half of August, hopefully, should be good stuff for the Bitcoin miners. And, they're in the short term, they're very price dependent. But the Bitcoin miners that are hodling everything, if Bitcoin does what it's supposed to do, then they're going to get all of that appreciation on all the Bitcoin that they mine. So, that's the flip side of the stock dilution. And I understand there's two sides to that. And one of the things we've talked about is a balanced approach, paying your bills and then hodling the rest. So some companies are doing that. Some companies are hodling everything. A few companies are hodling nothing. So, every different strategy is in play.
Woo-wee.
So I didn't get to everything on my list, but I think we hit the big stuff. And you got any other thoughts, George?
Tom, we're leaving on a pump, so that's probably the best time to go.
All right, so we'll close out this poll. If we change it to will Bitcoin hit 80,000 by the end of the year, this number jumps from 66% to 88%. So I think it's an optimistic group. And, you know, if we jump to 80 or 85 or 90, I'm not going to be disappointed. I'm not going to be crying in my soup. That should be good stuff. And I think that's the number where the Bitcoin miners will start to get some of their big moves too. So 89%. So we'll close it out on that thought. Thank you everybody for joining us. Hopefully you guys had, you know, it was a good day for Bitcoin. It was a good day for most of the Bitcoin miners. There were a few that were a little bit in the red. So all in all, it was kind of a sideways week. So thank you everybody so much. Special thanks to all the members, of course, and to everybody who provided a super chat. Thanks for supporting the channel. Thank you, George. So with that, everybody have a fantastic weekend. And the members, will see you on Tuesday. And hopefully everybody else, we'll see you next Friday.
See you guys.